He stabbed him right in the day room in front of everybody. Did not care at all. Even right in front of the police.
All right, good afternoon. This is State of Florida versus Stephen Testa with multiple cases before the court.
Yo, what's poppin', man? This is EI the King, and this is the Incarceration Podcast, where I talk about prison, pre, post, and present, and how everything that I experienced throughout my incarceration has forever changed my life. This is the incarceration. See, that was my dog who I just got a letter from and about a month ago. So I was trying to send my dog like videos on JPay and emails, and for some reason, like it wasn't working, it wasn't sending. And I keep in contact with a whole bunch of my dogs, and I don't know why I wasn't able to contact him. And this is like my dog, man. I did years with him. He was actually my tattoo man. Did a lot of my tattoos. I had a couple different tattoo guys, but he did a lot of mine. And this is my dog, most importantly. So I've been trying to contact him since I've been home, and I, wasn't able to. So then I finally get like a three-way call from somebody, like in his dorm, and my dog's on CM, which is closed management. That means like, okay, like you're locked down in a confinement cell for like 23 hours a day. And it's like CM is normally longer than a year. Most guys, they get CM for like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Depends what they did and how they're acting while they're back there. Some guys can stay on CM for closed management for 5 years, 10 years. It all depends like how they're living when they get back there. So when my dog calls me on this three-way call, he only had a couple minutes, so we're just catching up. It's great to hear from him. And I asked him what he did. He said, man, I wet somebody. That means he stabbed somebody. And I'm like, what happened? He said, bro, I can't talk about it on the phone, so I'm going to write you a letter. And when he wrote me a letter, he explained to me that he was messing with, a police, a woman officer. And this dude was just hating on him and rode a kite on him and snitched on him and got her moved to like, normally whenever like the administration is notified or someone like snitches and they do the little investigation and there's like some type of proof that one of the woman officers is like in a relationship with an inmate, they'll move her and they'll lock up the inmate. So my dog got locked up under investigation, and he had some proof that this guy that he suspected snitched on him, wrote a kite on him. A kite is like a request form or some type of letter they'll put in the little mailbox. It's like a inmate request box. So a lot of like snitches in the chain gang, they be snitching on the low. They be writing kites is what they call them. Like for whatever reason, hating that this dude got a phone or telling about gang stuff. You know what I mean? Some snitches, man, they snitch face to face with the police. They'll be, brought back to administration or classification, or they'll just pull up on the police officer. However, but you got some snitches, they just, write kites, or I don't know, they snitch however they want to. So this guy apparently wrote a kite on my dog and brought the administration's awareness of my dog's relationship with this woman. Got my dog locked up, got the girl moved, and when my dog came out, man, he was pissed. He was hot, and he wet him up. Stabbed him in front of everybody. Right in the middle of the day room, didn't even care. So let's get to it, man. Prison romance, part 2. So whenever you land a female, once again, I want to go ahead and clarify if I've used verbiage or say things that offends you as a woman, or that can be maybe like, I'm not by no means trying to degrade any women. Women, all of you are queens that God has created. I love you all to death. But maybe it's just because of the verbiage from prison and the way that I explain this. Once again, there's no ill intention on my part. Some of this may be negative, and if it offends you, I don't intend to. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get that out the way. All right, so if you land you a female, if you're an inmate in prison, you got it made. I mentioned the first part 1 of prison romance. That's like the majority of any inmate's fantasy. It's to be in a relationship, with a woman officer. Of course, the guy who's being deprived from female interaction, especially if he doesn't have any women riding out with him, you know what I mean? It means the world if you're incarcerated just to get a piece of mail. Like, I'll go into that later, but you have no idea the feeling of just longing to hear your name called at the end of the night when the police officer is handing out mail at the flap. Testa, yes, I got mail. Who's it from? You know what I mean? Oh, it's from that baby, man. It's from that girl I'm talking to. You know what I mean? That means the world to, an incarcerated man, because you're removed from like all like female interaction. So to be able to get on the phone and call your girlfriend if you're in a relationship, or call a girl, even if it's your home girl or a girl you know from the streets, or to get visitation and a hug and kiss them. So that means the world to an incarcerated man, because you're removed from society, man. You know what I mean? So you're longing for that tension, that female interaction, the intimacy. So it's the prison fantasy for an inmate to be in a relationship with a woman officer, especially like sexually. Like an inmate who's on that, he'll be fantasizing about like, busting off to the mop closet, you know what I mean, with the female officer and having sex with her in there and all that stuff. So the point I'm getting at, if you're in a relationship and you're incarcerated, man, you got it made. That's like, the highest point of living, of being incarcerated, when it comes to like maybe like some shallow things. And the reason why is like, yo, like, first of all, you got like that attention from a woman, especially if she's like attractive, you're attracted to her. You know what I mean? Something you're deprived of for years. Just having that conversation, building with her. She likes you, you like her, or you fall in love, she falls in love. So you got somebody you could talk to every day, face to face. But also too, man, what is she gonna do, bro? She's gonna bring you food. That's gonna be the first thing. She's gonna bring you food before you even start the relationship. If she's feeling you, she gonna break you off, man. Most of these, officers, they bring their lunch. They got canteen up front, to the beginning at the administration building. Whenever they go on their breaks, they got canteen. They sell food in there, and they got like better canteen. It's kind of like it's street food, so this stuff, that type of food's not sold on, the inmate canteen. So like, you talking to her like, hey, can you get me, you already know what they got, like, at the um the administration canteen. Like, yo, they got that Caesar salad up there, right? Yo, can you grab me one? Or you don't even gotta ask for it. She's bringing you street food. She's bringing you home cooked meals. She's bringing you McDonald's, or if she classy, she gonna bring you a steak. So that right there means the world to somebody who hasn't had that in years. And that's just like scratching the surface. But that in itself is monumental. It's huge. All right. So not only is she bringing you food, and you have that intimacy, but of course, like, yo, like, you may be kissing her, you may be having sex with her, you guys break off in the mop closet, or, or go back and clean like the staff bathroom, or in the breezeway, or wherever you're working at, or if you're in food service, in the freezer, or in the storage room, or in the swill room. Like, it can go down anywhere. But not just that, but especially for the guys who are trying to make plays in prison. They're trying to get money. I know people who they're making like, yo, they're making six figures in prison. Not everybody, but you got some hustlers in the chain game, bro. They're selling phones for $1,000 a piece, $1,200 that they're only paying a couple $100 for. A couple $100 at the phone, maybe a couple $100 for the route. They can run it up in prison. I've seen guys cash apps, 25,000. It blows my mind how much money people can make in prison, selling phones, selling drugs, selling tobacco, all that crime going on. Uh, Not trying to spray too much, but obviously even the administration of prisons, they're aware of it. They know what's going on. So the point I'm getting at is, if a guy's in a relationship with an officer and he's on that type of time, he's already like, trying to sell phones. He's a dope boy. He's a hustler from the street. He's doing the same thing in prison. That's going to be his number one go-to. The whole reason why he got in this relationship, or even pulled up on this girl, or began to pursue her, and to build with her, is because he's trying to put that money on her. She's only getting paid, what, $15 an hour? $16 an hour, maybe 18, maybe less than that, 12, 14. He gonna give her a band every time she bring 10 phones. He wants her to do that once, twice a week. Ain't no telling, like, the process, or each individual circumstance can be different, but he trying to give her that bag. Why? Because he's gonna make that bag. So the little bit that he can give her for bringing the stuff in, whether it be drugs or phones or cigarettes or whatever it may be, man, he's finna make a killing. And she's trying to get that bag too, and she may even came there with the motive to like try to stay out of that. But sometimes that money can be tempting. But then you also got women officers, yo, they start working in prison to get that bag. That's why they came there. I've had plenty of women officers pull up on me and but like, yo, what's up? Let's run. I'm talking about like sometimes they were like moving like too loose. Like, you don't even know me like that. And plus, too, while I was incarcerated, like, number one, I wasn't on that type of time. I was living for the glory of Christ Jesus. And as God transformed my life while in prison, of course, I hop on the phone every now and then, you know what I mean? But I'm not in there selling phones and definitely not selling drugs or not trying to make money like that at all. I'm like the money that people are sending me, I'm sending to my kids, my mom, whatever. But nah, I wasn't on that type of time. But the point I'm getting at is some of the women who start working at prison, they're coming in there with that mindset. I've had women officers pull up on me, say, "What's up? Just running up. Let's get that bag." Just because they like the way that I move and they feel like they could build with me or whatever, or maybe they found me attractive and they wanted to, have a relationship as well. I don't know, but I've had women officers approach me too, just wanting like to, yo, what's up? So you got some women who begin working at prison just to run that bag up. They're trying to get paid. And a lot of them do, and some of them get caught, some of them don't. But that's definitely a reality, a part of the romance in prison. So let me get back to that. So it's a dream for the inmate to be in a relationship with the woman officer because it's going to be perks, man. It's going to be a lot of perks depending upon how the inmate's living and where he's going with it. You know what I mean? It can be multiple different things, but the reality is it's better than not having no relationship, or just being all alone. I mean, once again, that's if you're on that type of time. So it's all boils down to personality and how you're living. But also too now, whenever you start a relationship with a woman officer, people are going to know. Unless like you are that guy. Listen now, I mentioned the first part one. If you haven't seen part one, go ahead and watch part one too after this video, man. Prison Romance Part 1. So listen now, you got that character, that type of guy in prison, that inmate who he got bodies. You know what I mean? Like not like murder bodies, but like sexual body. He done got plenty relationships with staff. So he's experienced, he knows what he's doing. He's the finesser, he's the player. He's coming in there to get a route, to get the avenue, to get drugs in, phones. And that's his whole intention with building this relationship. So this guy, he may be able to keep other people out his game room. He may be that smooth to where like, he can have people not notice. But for the most part, bro, people are gonna notice that you're in a relationship with a woman officer. Why? Because inmates in prison, survival instinct, you watch everything. You have to. You are literally watching your entire surroundings at all times. Always see everything. And some people are just like flat out nosy. Some people, they're on that type of time to where they're trying to have a relationship with a woman. So they're watching her just as much as you're watching her. So they're watching her every move. So while they're watching her eyes always go to you. They're watching every time you talk to her, they see that. Every time that you're at the flap, you know what I mean? Where the booth is, where they stay, secluded away from the inmates in the dorm and see you up there talking to her, they see that. So everyone begins to see that, okay, you're talking to her a lot. She's coming to you a lot. She starts talking to you. Or they may see you throw away like a styrofoam tray. They don't hand those out in canteen. That's street food. Or they may see you walk away from the flap with chewing on gum. You know what I mean? One wrong move like that. Dang, she gave him gum. She feeling you. You know what I mean? So it's a bad thing when the rest of the inmate population knows you're in a relationship. Why? Because you got haters out there, man. You got snitches, they gonna tell on you, man. They're gonna tell on you. So the majority of the time, and I would say 90% of the time, I would say 95% of the time, if not 99, the romantic relationships in prison for the most part don't last. I wouldn't say they don't last in length because I know some stories of some guys I know personally who have married nurses as well as sergeants, female officers when they came home from prison. And they done got caught and he done got locked up and he's released and she quit her job and they're married to this day. I know plenty stories like that. Happens all the time. But what I'm getting at is 95, 99% of these romantic relationships in prison, like they get found out. People catch them. And it's because you got so many people, our eyes are watching everything. And so the reality that I'm getting at, man, is even though it's a dope experience and it's the highlight of the moment for that incarcerated man, like chances are eventually it's gonna fall apart. You guys may break up for whatever personal reasons. She may move on. She's messing with somebody else. Or a lot of times, man, people see and they snitch, they drop kites. And that happens all the time. But also, too, not only does it end a lot because people see, people tell either other administration or the inmate population, but also too, man, it can lead to other bad things, and that's you losing your sanity, the inmate losing his mind because he's so in love. I remember whenever I was in prison my first time. That's something I'm gonna be personal now. All throughout my incarceration, I went to prison 3 times. I've done over 12 years in prison. Every time I've been to prison, every prison I've been at for the most part. And once again, too, just to give you a rundown of like my life while incarcerated, Jesus completely transformed my life in prison. So I wasn't in prison trying to like, pull women and run down on women and have sex with them. But of course, I'm a man, I'm attracted to women, and that's one of my biggest areas of my life that I've always wrestled with. And especially as a believer and follower of Jesus, I wrestle with like, sexual sin and, just desiring to be in relationships with women. So even while I was in prison during these 3 prison bids, pretty much every prison I went to, I was always challenged with the temptation of being in a relationship with a woman who worked in prison. For myself, it was a couple different officers who worked at different prisons I was at, as well as women who worked in food service. So for me, I can say personally, as I'm talking about, it can mess with your mind. I remember when I was 18, my first prison bid. There was a woman. She was probably I was 18. She was like 24, maybe she was 26, and I'm green. I don't know nothing about like prison romance, but she's one of them chain gang divas. And she was pretty too. You know what I mean? She was bad. She wasn't like fine, fine, like Beyonce fine, but she was beautiful, man. And of course I'm 18 years old in prison, and I've been in prison maybe no, I was probably like 19 then. I've been in prison maybe about a year. So anyways, long story short, I didn't know she was like a chain gang diva because I wasn't that like up to game when it comes to like, how women move in prison and like just the different types of women who are in relationships. But she was definitely one of them girls to where like she was just trying to get attention. She was an attention whore, so but she would like only like she would bounce from inmate to inmate. So she was locked in with me for a while. But I remember like I was like all up in my head. I was like just locked in on this girl. You know what I mean? I was like obsessing over her. And the whole point I get to that is that, with me, it was like balance, even though it was like unhealthy in my mind. And maybe I was acting a little crazy, like emotionally. Like I ain't go off the deep end and spaz out and do nothing crazy. But for some guys, man, like, yo, that love, that prison romantic relationship can lead to a lot of bad things. Like that talked about in part one, that guy stabbing that female officer in the neck because she broke up with him. Or like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, part two, that my dog stabbed another inmate because he told on him. And it's like, and he was like, a high ranking member in a specific gang. So he's on that type of time anyway when it comes to somebody snitching on him. But I know for the most part, like from what he shared with me, he didn't just wet up that guy because he snitched on him. He wet up that guy because he loved that girl. And because he just like ruined their relationship, because she got moved to another compound. So like this guy who told on them pretty much had them like their relationship in. And my dog just seeing blood, he just blacked out. So that's what I'm getting at, is that even though like these prison romantic relationships may be a good thing for a while for like the inmate, like a lot of times for the most part it always turns out bad. And especially if the guy can like, lose his mind, over this girl, lose his sanity, and it can get ugly. Like I've already mentioned some stories. Um but also too, it can get ugly another way. Man, I done seen some things, I done heard some stories, and I personally know people who, like I mentioned, this can normally fall in the lap the guy who's the finesser. The guy who's like, that's his intention, that's his approach with women while he's incarcerated. He's the player, he's the one pulling a lot of girls. Normally this problem happens to him. Normally this guy, he was a dope boy on the street. He was somebody on the street. So he normally got girls coming to see him weekly, whether it's different girls or the same girl, his baby mama or his main chick, whatever. So he's normally in Vizzo a lot. And a lot of times you hear stories, and I know people who his girls come on to see him, and he's seeing them every weekend. But the woman that he's in a relationship with who works at the prison, normally like an officer is assigned to a specific dorm. And that's what makes it easy or easier to be in a relationship with the girl, because if you live in this dorm and she works your dorm, she's assigned to your dorm. And that's why administration, they specifically have it to where like officers can only work at certain posts for a certain amount of time, because they try to prevent the consistent interaction. So whenever you have a woman that's assigned to this dorm and you live there, man, they pulling up on her every day. You know what I mean? They have an in-depth conversation. It gives their time for her to fall in love with him and for him to like build a relationship with her, for him to fall in love with her as well. But sometimes they can move them around just like for the day if they're short, if they need somebody to cover over here. So there's a lot of times, a lot of stories to where this girl who's in this relationship with this guy, this player, right? She normally works his dorm and she normally don't work visitation. Normally she don't even work on the weekends, but she's getting overtime, or maybe she heard about his baby mama and she's trying to see things. So maybe she specifically asked for that post for the weekend, whatever the case may be. But guess who's in visitation that Saturday? Watching her man who she's in a relationship with kiss another woman who's his baby mama. So she's in there, the officer sizing up his baby mama, looking crazy. You know how you know how women can get, women, if you're watching this, you already know they sizing it. This officer looking at this girl's side eye. So this girl's looking at like her man, like, who is this girl looking at me crazy? So now the baby mama or the girlfriend, whoever it is on the street, now she's putting two and two together. He's messing with her. Or sometimes it gets to the point where the officer will straight up say something to the girl and put him on blast and be like, oh, you his girl. Or she may not know that he has a girlfriend or whatever. And she can ruin his long-term relationship. And now she ain't coming to see him. And now she don't want to talk to him. So that's other drama that can result from prison romance. And also too, man, I'm going to talk about this more in depth in another episode, but I just want to go ahead and give y'all, man, this little sneak peek. Do you know where the love connection is in prison? Like when it comes to the inmate population and women, you know where the love connection is? Food service. It goes down in food service. It goes down in food service. Mark my words, any prison throughout the nation, there's a woman in a food service kitchen in prison who is in love with the inmate who's working there. Hands down. Every prison in America. Food service in prison is the love connection for the chain gang. All right, so I'm not going to go into full detail right now. I will at another time, best believe me. I'm going to have to do a whole episode or a couple episodes on the relationships and interactions that I had with women while I was incarcerated. But this just give you a brief snapshot. I woke up in the morning. I ain't go to breakfast. I slept all morning. And it's first yard, so they call us out the yard. I'm just go brush my teeth real quick. And I think I give me like, a cup of coffee, pack of Marias, and I'm walking out the yard. And I just see like everybody looking at me. And I'm like, what? I got my MP3 in, I'm about to walk, the track and, spend some time in prayer and then get my early morning workout on. But I see a lot of people like side-eyeing me. A lot of people are looking at me. So I'm like, all right, what's going on? And I say some people smirking. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I know I'm not tripping. So then my dog pull up on me and he's like, congratulations. And he's like putting his arms on me and like, like just messing with me. I'm like, bro, what? About what? He's like, bro, man, I heard you got a baby on the way, man. I'm like, what? But my heart dropped. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, dog, like everybody talking about you messing with such and such in food service. And they said she's pregnant. I said, bro, my heart drops again. I said, bro, please tell me you're playing. He goes, nah, dog, like everybody's talking about it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, bro. I'm terrified. I'm thinking I'm about to go to jail. But she wasn't pregnant. I never even had sex with her. But I was not in a relationship, but me and this girl were talking intimately for a while, messing around a little bit. And people got aware of it, and I guess somebody had dropped a kite on me, and there was like a known snitch who was called up to like administration, and apparently he had like told like the LT, and then somebody else from food service was brought up there in question, and he banged. So when he came back, like he let everybody know, like why I think he went up there with like a witness with him to make sure he went up there like telling to protect his face. So like they both came back and like, dang, like the whole reason why they was brought up there is because like they was asking us if Testa was messing with such and such. So bam, right there, whole compound knows. Whole compound knows. So I'm cool with everybody, anyways. And, people are pulling up on me and talking about it, but not everybody. Those are like touchy subjects, and people are trying to stay in their own lane. They don't want to like, approach you and talk to you about it. But it's like the rumor of the morning, like the chain gang news. So I'm just like, damn, I'm scared. I'm about to go to jail. But that's the whole point that I'm getting at is, yeah, it may be cool for the moment, being in some type of like, romantic relationship while in prison. But man, it don't last long, dog. And I wasn't even having sex with the girl. I wasn't even in a relationship with her. We were messing around, we were talking. Because once again, man, I'm following Jesus while I'm incarcerated, active in ministry. God's using me to preach and teach the gospel on the pound, to make disciples. And I'm wrestling with this temptation. And some of my few close homies know, who I do ministry with. And they're keeping me accountable in the situation because I'm like in a very like tempting situation because where I work at, and I'm the butcher man. So I got all the privacy back there, and I'm always in these back rooms with these women. So I'm telling a few of my dogs who are close to me to hold me accountable. Um, and I'm just keeping it real, confessing my sin to them, what I'm wrestling with. But so that is an example and a brief story about how fast it can blow up in your face. Um, so yeah, but thank God though I didn't get locked up, nothing. They had no proof, and ultimately, man, I know it's just the favor and just the mercy of God, because like even the administration knew my reputation as well. They're like, yo, Testa of all people, like the guy who's out there preaching every week, and like, and I had influence on the compound because of Christ living through me, and just making disciples on the pound and grinding for ministry. But the whole reason why I say that is because once again, a romantic relationship in prison, though fun for the moment, though good. Uh, 90% of the time, 95, 99%, it's going to blow up in your face and it's going to end bad. So listen, enjoy a real healthy relationship in society. Don't go to prison because any romantic relationship is going to result to chaos, man. Stay free. Don't go to prison. Hey, listen, man, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel, The Incarceration Podcast. This is Prison Romance Part 2. We're going to be talking about this a lot more in detail later on. There's so many other different topics and different realities of prison that we're going to talk about. So if you've been to prison, you got some experiences, man, go ahead and share it in the comments. If you got any questions, some things you don't understand, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'll make sure I respond to it. And once again, man, this is your boy, E.I. the King, and this is the Incarceration Podcast, where I talk about prison, pre, post, and present, and how everything that I experienced throughout my incarceration has forever changed my life. This is the Incarceration.